Hey everybody, Miles here from MSS Moncton, Maritime Sword School Moncton, and I'm pretty excited about this. This is definitely the most ambitious video effort that I've ever been a part of. We are launching our full Roworth curriculum right here on the MSS Moncton YouTube channel. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, what we're doing here, and a little bit about the format, because we are specifically releasing an entire curriculum with full documentation broken up into lesson plans for you. So, without further ado, who am I? Well, I'm Miles Kinney, and I've been practicing HEMA for about 8 years in a remote little corner of Canada, the East Coast, the Maritimes, hence Maritime Sword School. We just wanted to go with something that was going to be really easy for people to immediately figure out what we do, because HEMA, people out here don't know what that is. WMA, people out here don't know what that is. You know, historical fencing is pretty descriptive. I'll use that here and there. But generally, you know, Maritime Sword School just tells people from out here exactly what we're doing, okay? So, about 8 years ago, we started this little club in Charlottetown, and hey, things went okay. About 2 years ago, I moved over to Moncton, started working on a new club last year. Phil Swift joins us in St. John's, Newfoundland. Really, really cool. We're so lucky to have him. Make sure you check out his channel. Like so many of us out there, we've decided that we want to join the greater HEMA community. We want to start offering something. We want to start contributing, like so many different people have. And for me, I was, thinking about it, and my thought process was, well, I don't really want to put out, a lot of the stuff that I've been working on for the last 8 years. That's really just for MSS students that learn from us directly. So I've been kind of thinking about this for a while, and what was something cool that we could do, that we could put out, that would contribute to the community, but that wouldn't necessarily be giving away all of our secrets out here in this club. I know that sounds silly, but I know a lot of you guys think that way too, okay? So I know it's not that silly. Alright? And immediately, or well, not immediately, as I started to research, I came across the Roworth manual, Charles Roworth, and I was immediately attracted to it. Once I read through it once, I was like, wow, this is really good. I read through it twice. I fell more in love 3, 4, 5 times, and I was like, oh wow, this is something really, really cool. And not just that, this is something that every HEMAist should probably learn first. And here we are. I'm putting this out here so that people who are looking to get into HEMA are going to have the easiest way possible to get into it. I strongly believe that this manual is the easiest manual to learn. Not only that, we're going to be putting it out in a format that is beyond easy to learn. In my opinion, we are going to be releasing a series of documents that go with it. So you can grab Roworth's manual for free on Google. The link is in the description. We're going to give you the syllabus. The link is in the description. We're going to give you the lesson plans. The link is in the description. We are going to give you the drill master list broken down, how to perform them. The link is in the description. Here in this video, I'm going to give you the lecture on every single section. We are going to give you visual representations. We're going to demo all of the drills that is in the curriculum right here for you, so that you never have any question about what you should or shouldn't be doing. You are getting the complete curriculum. I'm going to be releasing these about every 2 weeks, okay? I reserve the right to release them every 3 weeks if something goes wrong and I have to do a bunch of reshoots, okay? And that's just the way it's going to be. Alright? But I'm aiming for every 2 weeks, okie dokie, because I'm really goal-oriented, and this is how my process works, okay? Of course, before we get started, I think that something that's really important for me is that I just take a moment and I want to thank everybody in the HEMA community, in the HEMA hive mind, who has given me so much. Without you guys, I would not be doing HEMA. I may or may not be swinging swords in the backyard. I probably will be swinging swords in the backyard, but I wouldn't be calling it anything. I wouldn't be reading sources. I never would have discovered any of the stuff that I've discovered over the years, and I thank you guys so much. In particular, I have to throw a big shout out to Nick Thomas in the UK. I think that his work on making historical British sources accessible for people is really, really fantastic, and it's somebody whose material I leaned on while I was developing my material here, so I really don't think it would be right of me to continue on with this series without giving a big thank you to Nick Thomas. You can check out his website, swordfight.co.uk. Alright, check it out. Without further ado, let's get into these lesson plans, baby. So, folks, what are you going to need to get started? Well, it's cool if you have one of these, alright? This is something that's really awesome about studying these later HEMA systems, is that antique sabers are attainable, okay? If you are studying your Codification, if you're studying your Fiore, you can't afford an antique longsword, an antique period longsword, I'm sorry, but you can't. Maybe you can, I don't know, I can't. Alright, but you can afford an antique saber. What's awesome about this is that you always have a point of reference that you're able to relate the material to. Alright, and that's really, really, really cool because you can just hold a period piece, and being able to do that immediately puts things in perspective. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that later on. Alright? Now, here's what I want you to understand about this system. We can get you sparring for about $120 worth of equipment. Okay? It is so easy, it is so accessible. With the single stick. Here's the thing about the single stick. The single stick is historic. This is what people learned this system with. They learned it with the single stick. So if you're using the single stick, you're actually being 100% historic about it. This is a 36-inch rattan stick. Okay, it's from Purple Heart Armory. It was $7. We made these guards. We specifically made stirrup guards so that we're not leaning on the basket to protect our hands, okay? And I 100% stand by that choice completely. The basket is cool, but Roworth specifically tells you not to lean on the basket to protect your hand, okay? So we made a choice that we were going to use stirrup guards instead, and frankly, I think that our inside and outside guards, our hand protection has developed really, really cleanly as a result in our single stick practice. Next up, your HEMA mask, okay? This is one of the nicer ones from Absolute Force that has the overlay. It's really, really cool. You can get the one without the overlay for $60. I never wear the one with the overlay when I'm doing single stick, okay? That's the honest truth. I like to breathe. That thing weighs less than 200 grams. You're going to be okay. And if you're sparring with someone when you're doing single stick who's trying to hit you in the back of the head, they're kind of a jerk, and you should never be turning your face out of the strike. In your HEMA, I know that sounds weird, right? But when you're doing your HEMA, don't be turning your face out of the strike. All you're doing is exposing the less protected parts of your body to potential injury. The last two things that you're going to need to get sparring safely with single stick is a forearm protector and a glove. Okay? It's literally this simple, guys. A single stick, a mask, a forearm protector, and a glove, and you've really got everything that you need for single stick, unless you're doing thrusts. With single stick and our club, we don't do thrusts with them because the stick doesn't compress, okay? When you're ready to move on to the thrusting parts of the manual, I recommend you just switch over to synthetics, and you should be thinking about getting a jacket at that point anyways, and you're going to be just fine. Folks, let's start at step one, where Roworth tells us to start, because we're working through this in the exact order that he teaches it, okay? We're not jumping around, we're doing it in his order, okay? Except for like one or two tiny little things, just so that you can, it's just going to make more sense that way, okay? Very first thing we're going to look at is the grip. How do you hold on to this bad boy? You know what, there's quite a few different ways to do it, and we're going to demo those in just a moment with our single stick, but I want to take one moment to demonstrate something. The sword knot. When I first saw the sword knot, I had no clue what to do with it. I didn't even know what it was called. It was just some funny thing that would bop me in the chin when I swung the saber around. Reading Roworth again and paying more attention to the grip section, I saw, oh, it has a function. You put your hand in, twist twice. Now, if anything happens, you still have hold of the weapon, okay? And you know what? And the more that I've used this, the more it makes such complete sense, okay? Roworth wants you cutting from the wrist. We're going to talk about that quite a bit as we make our way through the material. And your hand gets tired. He wants you gripping quite tightly at the top of the grip with your thumb and forefinger, okay? And they're going to tire out beyond that. Think about the context. If you're using this for real, it's muddy, it's wet, it's bloody. Losing a hold of this becomes a really real option. So we actually do want to use the sword knot. Now, let's grab our single stick and let's start looking at grips.
So the very first thing I'm going to display for you is the difference between the hammer grip, the handshake grip, and the thumb grip. You can see with the hammer grip, as I attempt to extend out into my cut, my wrist structure is breaking. That's bad. I can't deliver a good cut that way, and beyond that, it's going to increase the likelihood of injury for myself. So we're not going to be using the hammer grip to strike. We are going to be using the hammer grip to parry. Roworth specifically tells us to use the hammer grip to parry, but he also says it's very intuitive and not to worry about it too much. With the handshake grip, you can see that I'm able to extend my point out without my wrist structure breaking. And now the thumb grip, I can do the exact same thing. I'm not going to break my structure. Roworth wants us using the thumb grip with the small sword, the spadroon, the cut and thrust sword, and with the single stick. He actually wants us using the handshake grip with the saber and the broadsword because he says that it's unwieldy to use a thumb grip with either of those blades. And I'm going to let you guys decide what you want to do in your own club, but I'm trying to present what Roworth says as faithfully as I can. For our first drill, drill 1-1A, we're just going to practice switching in between grips. You can see that I start in a hammer grip, I move to a handshake grip, I move to a thumb grip, I move back to a hammer grip, and I move back to a thumb grip. The reason for that is that Roworth wants us switching to the hammer grip for a hard parry, especially with a steel sword, right? We talked about how slippery the hilt can potentially become in a real situation, why we're using a sword knot. We're going to hold on to that thing like grim death when we're parrying a hard strike from a steel sword. But he also likes us to be using that thumb grip a lot, okay? Now you'll see I just switched my hand down a little bit, and what I'm doing here is I'm holding on tight with my thumb and forefinger with the single stick, and I'm powering the cut with the bottom three fingers. Roworth really likes this, okay? And he talks about it. And basically, he likes us throwing cuts from the wrist if we're not sure if they're going to land, because he values the recovery so highly. He only really wants us firing off shots from the elbow and the shoulder if we're guaranteed to hit. So developing that ability to flick is a fundamental skill. And you can see it's a little bit harder to keep a hold of it when you don't have that thumb grip, all right? So I really want you to take note of that.
Folks, you're holding a sword. Way to go. you're number one. But let's talk about how to stand, okay? There's a right way and a wrong way to stand, okay? And when we're dealing with Roworth, it's actually pretty different from our medieval stances that you might be used to if you're a practitioner coming from another system. And if you're brand new, I think this is a really great stance to learn because it's going to keep you pretty agile, and it's going to start building up, you know, a little bit of stamina, not as much as the deep medieval stances will for longsword, but you're still going to feel the burn, okay? Let's take a look.
Roworth gives us a very specific stance. It's the classic L, okay? Your lead leg, your right foot pointed forward, and then perpendicular, your back foot, 14 to 16 inches apart. He doesn't want a wide stance. Beyond that, he wants the majority, if not the entirety, of your weight on the back leg, which is really important to note. He wants your lead leg to be almost weightless so that you can advance and retreat very easily. We're going to talk more about the advancing and retreating steps later, okay? So we're just going to go a little bit out of sequence here, okay? Just so that you can get used to stepping right away. We're going to talk a lot more about the advancing and retreating step later on, but I want you to try a couple things here, okay? Your advancing step. Move the lead foot forward and then push off of the rear foot to move forward, okay? To move backwards, the retreating step, move the rear foot backwards, then push off of the lead foot to retreat, okay? No, I'm shaking it out here a little bit, all right? Because this is like day 4 of me doing HEMA without a break. But I also want you to try drill 1-2B, which is this with a training partner, with you taking turns doing the initiative to start to learn the rhythm and maintaining distance.
The lunge. You know, I had such a great time learning about Roworth's lunge, and truth be told, I am still working on Roworth's lunge, okay guys? This is hard, and Roworth knows it. He specifically tells us that you need to do the lunge inside your capabilities because you have to be able to recover. Recover, okay? It's so important that you can nail that recovery that Roworth specifically tells us not to lunge outside of your ability, okay? So it's great if you can get the long, perfect lunge, but you're probably not going to be able to do that. So let's look at it, let's talk about it, and let's see what we can do.
Okay, guys, this is where it gets tough. And you're going to have to practice this quite a bit, all right? You can see here I'm showing you what your ideal lunge should look like, okay? My knee is perpendicular, I'm fully extended, it's beautiful. But here's the thing, I can't recover from that efficiently. If you can't recover from the movement, then you shouldn't be doing the movement, because lunging and striking is only half of it. Your ability to recover is the other half. Look at that. Oh, pathetic fat old man, my land. So let's take a look at what I can do and recover efficiently from, okay? I can't get super deep into that, okay? What I'm trying to do, though, is making sure that my knees don't go over my toes here. Beyond that, I'm making sure to use my other hand as my counterweight to help me recover. Roworth specifically wants you to throw your hand out and then to snap it up smartly beside your face, okay?
You can hold a sword. You can stand, you can lunge. Let's talk about the guards, okay? And what I find so funny about Roworth is the very first guard he tells us about, the medium guard, he explains how to do it, then he tells us it sucks, and he shows us two way better guards. Let's take a look at all 3, okay?
Here we go, folks, your first 3 guards. Roworth starts off with the median guard, and he makes a distinction with this one. He really considers it prepare to guard. He doesn't really want you fighting with it, striking out of it. He doesn't seem to think that it's particularly good for that. But if you're not sure what's happening and you're out of range, then he thinks it's fine. Beyond that, he always wants to make sure that your ward iron is covering the knuckles. So now we're moving into the outside guard. The outside guard, just as it says, it's warding the outside of your body. We're turning the stirrup outwards, the ward iron outwards. We're letting our arms straighten out a little bit, but not too much. We're just letting the point cross the line of the defense, just barely. And this is a fantastic guard. The outside and the inside guard, I mean, if you take anything from the system, I think that's probably the thing to take, okay? Is your inside and outside guard. And here we have our inside guard. We rotate it inside. We don't want to over-rotate it, or we're going to be opening our wrist too much. I think that this is just a hair over-rotated. And again, we're letting that point just barely cross the line of defense, and we're pointing it up. In earlier editions, it's 4 inches over the head. In later editions, he wants you pointing it at the eyes. Now, this is drill A in this section. You're just switching between all three. In just a moment, we're going to switch over to drill B, and in drill B, you are only going to be switching between the inside and outside guard, because again, the inside and the outside guard are what are really important here. And I think that the most important things to remember here is that your arm isn't getting too straight and you aren't over-rotating the blade.
Alrighty, gang. Let's start talking about cutting with the sword, okay? And Roworth gives us really particular instructions about cutting. He gives us particular instructions about cutting with different kinds of swords, just like he gave us instructions on how to hold different types of swords, okay? So that context is going to be really, really important. Beyond that, he gives us a lot of context about when to use continuous fluid motions and when to use single-time actions, okay? We're going to talk about those, and we're going to take a look at all 6 of his cuts, and we're going to give you some great drills so that you can start practicing those cuts in different contexts.
So the cuts are going to be presented in pairs, starting off with cuts 1 and 2, because they're going to be your most thrown cuts. Every pair of cuts has 5 drills associated with it. Here we see the first movement, which will be the cuts moving to the inside and outside guards as single-time actions. Now, you might need to watch this a couple times, and you might need to check out Roworth's texts here, but I think they're pretty straightforward. What I really want you to remember is that we're cutting from the wrist. Here, we're moving to a continuous action between the two. All right? From the wrist, of course. Before anything else, Roworth wants us to practice cutting from the wrist. In the next section, section 10, where we practice all 6 cuts in sequence, we're going to be practicing with the elbow and the shoulder, isolated. But for our first 5 exercises for each pair of cuts here, I really want you just concentrating on the wrist. So now we're at the third movement, which is leaning forward, shifting your weight forward, all right? Not lunging, just shifting your weight forward. Again, recovering to the inside and outside guards. And next up, we're going to be moving into, well, we're still in movement 3. I guess I'll wait till we get to movement 4. Of course, we have alternate views so that you can see what's happening from every angle, okay? Now, movement 4 with the lunge. The hand recovering smartly, and we're using the exact same movements that we used in drills 1, 3, and 4, recovering to our inside and outside guards, but we're adding that lunge and recovery to it. And hey, these ones actually don't look too bad. Maybe I'll pat myself on the back. Not too hard, okay? Because I've still got a ways to go with my lunge. And here's movement 5, the paired exercise. Really do this one a lot. Do them with lunges, do them with leans forward, okay? Explore different angles. Really have some fun with this one, okay? And of course, guys, remember to be working from the wrist here. Roworth is very, very specific. He must mention it about 9 times in part 1 through the 10 sections that he wants you cutting from the wrist, and he doesn't want you using wild movements. We've moved on to cuts 3 and 4 here. One of my students, Paul, is jumping in, okay? And hey, Paul's still working on the stuff. We're all still working on the stuff, right? So don't be too hard on him. You know, I see that the hand isn't coming up high enough here. Roworth really, really wants the hand high on cuts 3 and 4 when you're passing through them. These ones look pretty good right here, the continuous ones, but it's going to be the exact same structure as the last drills, okay? There are 5 movements. You work through them. You have to be able to lean forward, do them single time, do them continuous, do them with lunge, and do them paired, okay? But anyways, like I was saying, Roworth gives us some really specific context, all right? He wants you to be able to do this from the wrist, first and foremost. The reason being that you'll overswing otherwise and leave yourself wide open to somebody who is more skilled than you are, somebody who's faster than you are, somebody who has a better lunge than you do. And nothing brings this home more than handling the antique. When you handle the antique, or, you know, the reproduction or the steel blunt, whatever you're working with, you're going to see right away that if you have not dialed in your wrist movements, that you are going to be breaking structure left and right, you are going to be overswinging hugely, and you are going to be wide open for the knock rise, and okay, for the traveling after, for somebody attacking after. I told myself I wasn't going to use any KDF terms here and give away any secrets to you guys, okay? But some are bound to squeak through, okay? Now Paul has moved on to 5 and 6. Hey, 5 and 6 can be tough to generate power with, right? Because you can't really rely on that moulinet to generate power with, okay? It's a little bit easier when you're doing it continuous because you have that little overswing, but you're not too open, all right? But when you're trying to generate power from your inside and outside, you kind of have to do a weird moulinet that kind of passes by the front of your head to generate power, all right? But of course, right off the bat, we want you more concentrating on the wrist, and there's a real trick to generating any kind of power with the stick using a wrist movement on cuts 5 and 6. And I consider that the most difficult of the 6 cuts to generate power with is the wrist movement with 5 and 6.
Throwing the 6 cuts fluidly. This is a really important skill. Roworth gives us a context for it. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how it's different because we just gave you a really broken down way of the cuts in pairs and how to recover to the basic guards from them. Let's take a look at how we're going to be throwing all 6 in sequence. And I'm going to give you some different contexts and a tool that's going to help you train them in different ways.
Alrighty, folks, here we are, section 10 of part 1, combining the 6 cuts. So, before anything else, we want to practice these from the wrist, okay? It goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Back to 1. All from the wrist, okay? We're going to give you a couple good angles from this so that you should be able to get a pretty good idea of what's going on. We're really trying to isolate movements. We're not trying to make it big. I'm keeping my guard as center as I can. Once we get a handle on that wrist, we're going to start including the elbow, okay? Because of course, Roworth tells us he doesn't want us throwing big shots until we've accustomed ourselves to the weight of the blade and our ability to recover, because it's just going to leave us open. Once we get the elbow dialed in, we can start working on the shoulder, okay? And of course, I want you to go slow with these, build yourself up to it. This is a drill that I really think you should be doing 3 times a week when you first start working on your Roworth material. Try to dole out this video over the course of about 2 weeks. Check out the lesson plans, okay? Don't try to bang through it all in one session. You might have a bad time. And in just a moment, I'm going to show you a little trick to help you build your isolations, okay? First, I'm going to admire watching my cuts here for a moment. Well, actually, I'm going to pick them apart. That's how I get better, is by watching my videos and hating on myself. So you see, I'm just grabbing the forearm there to try to isolate that wrist a little bit more and stop that elbow from engaging. And when I've had enough of that, I'm going to move up a little bit. I'm going to grab my bicep, and I'm going to repeat the exact same process. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy, just like that.
That's it, folks. You made it. This is the end of our part 1 of our rower series and concludes the practice at the target section of his manual. From here on out, we are moving into the meat. That is part 2, and we are really going to get into this system, all right? Honestly, once you get a handle on this part, you're probably going to be able to have a little bit of fun, but it's as we move through the rest that this system is really going to come to life for you. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you join me back here in 2 weeks to check out some more. And hey, links in the description. All right? Peace, guys.